What's up guys, Chris VA Travels. Not doing my regular vlog today, but just making a little video on Carter's Grove, perhaps the grandest Georgian mansion in the country. And it's a private residence, so don't have access to it, although I do hear it's open occasionally for Garden Week. Anyway, found some photos and information online. I'm just going to go through its history, architecture, tell you a couple funny stories. And to let you know, I got most of my information from historicstructures.com, archipedia.com, a blog post on the Devoted Classics website, and yes, and then good old Wikipedia. So the mansion was completed in 1755 down there in James City County, overlooking the James River. It's about 6 miles southeast of Williamsburg, and there used to be a private road linking it to Williamsburg called the Carter's Grove Country Road, but it was damaged by Hurricane Isabel in 2003 and was never fully repaired. To tell you the history, the land was originally inhabited by the Powhatan Indians. First English settlement was Wolstenholme Town, settled in March of 1619. It was the administrative center of the larger Martin's Hundred. It only lasted 3 years before it was wiped out by the Indian Massacre of 1622. Archaeologists found remains in 1978, and there's a reproduction of one of the skulls that was found with a big gash on top of the forehead over at the Virginia History Museum. Land eventually was acquired by Robert King Carter, largest landowner in Virginia at the time, owned over 300,000 acres, and he gave this tract to his daughter Elizabeth as a wedding gift, and the original dwelling was built on this property that same year, but and she ended up marrying Nathaniel Burwell. Property that then was passed on to their son Carter Burwell, and he's the one who built this grand mansion, again completed 1755. Original architect and bricklayer was David Minitree, and James Wheatley, he was the carpenter. So the property is named, of course, after the Carter family and then the nearby Grove Creek. To give you the timeline, the house stayed in the Burwell family hands until 1838. 1838, it was sold to a Thomas Wynne, W-I-N-N-E. House fell into a little bit of a decline after the Civil War, but then was purchased by a Dr. Edwin Booth, 1879. And to celebrate the 100th anniversary of George Washington's victory at Yorktown, he painted the interior red, white, and blue. And then he also added locust trees on the approach to the land. Next up would be T. Percival Bisland, purchased Carter's Grove in 1907. He was a New York businessman and an investor in silver mines. He made upgrades that included indoor plumbing, central heating, and a modern kitchen, but unfortunately he and his wife died just 3 years after owning the property. And from what I've read, it appears the house stayed somewhat dormant up until 1927 when it was purchased by Mr. and Mrs. Archibald McCrae. He was a Pittsburgh industrialist, and they made significant restorations under the guidance of Richmond architect Duncan Lee. House originally had a low-hip roof, but they raised it and added all those dormers that you see so they could add additional rooms to the upper floor. Then in 1964, a Rockefeller-supported fund purchased the estate, and it became part of the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, and it was open for tours for many years, up until 2003 when it finally closed its doors. Then Colonial Williamsburg put a conservation easement on it and sold it in 2007 to CNET founder Halsey Minor. He never lived in the house. He announced that it would be used for a thoroughbred horse breeding program. But he ended up filing for bankruptcy. It was purchased then by another CEO, and that's the latest information I have on the property. On the grounds, assortment of trees that include locusts, cedars, poplars. The house is 200 feet long. Again, perhaps the greatest example of Georgian architecture in the country. Close second place would be probably Westover Plantation there in Charles City County, which looks pretty similar. I wish there were some photos of the house before the upgrades were done by the McCraes. Like I say again, it originally had a low-hipped roof before it was elevated 11 feet. And those chimneys, I'm sure, wouldn't have had those arched hoods. Pilasters on the front doors are made of brick instead of stone or wood. That's a little bit unique. See terraces coming off the back of the house, leading down to parapets, vegetable gardens, and ornamentals. And these were a reconstruction that were added in the 1970s. And they're based off of architectural findings in the grid pattern gardens that were popular in 17th and 18th century tidewater plantations. Yeah, they really went crazy with the dormers on this thing. And a new roof was added recently. Alright, so it looks like inside of these boxwoods to the right, some sort of fountain or sculpture. Here's some footage of the house in the TV miniseries George Washington. It premiered in 1984. And in the series, the house is supposed to be Belvoir, the Fairfax family home. Yeah, I really hope this thing pops up on one of the garden tours here soon. Really love to visit. Unfortunately, I don't have much information on the enslaved that lived on the property. Here are some photos of the reconstructed slave quarters that were built for when the house was available for tours. I can only tell you that they were named after Roman and Greek figures such as Caesar, Venus, Hannibal, Pompey, Alexander, and Nero. Made it into the front stair hall, and yeah, some of the nicest woodwork you'd see in any Georgian home in Virginia, made of hard pine. Used to be painted, probably from the time the house was built. As you see, it's been cleared off and stained. Molly McCrae said the staircase balustrade was almost black from the dirty age finish when she first saw it. Front entrance right here. Photos from 1975. English joiner Richard Bayless did the interior woodwork that the house is famous for. Check out this entablature. And I'm not quite sure this is the front hall because the columns are Doric, but you'll see the triglyphs going across the frieze. Pretty neat designs in between. Wheat there on the left, and you've got the dentils there under the cornice. You'll see this elliptical arch framing on the entrance to the stairwell, flanked by columns in full Ionic order. Oh, and wild story, according to legend, Bannister Tarleton, British cavalry officer, rode his horse up and down the stairwell back in 1781, and they say he was slashing his saber back and forth. And there's still metal slivers in the armrails, they say. Oh wow, yeah, I can believe this is the best wood paneling of any home in Virginia. You'll see the stair has a scrolled rail over a terminal newel. The balustrades actually are walnut and pretty elaborately turned, and they're going 3 to a tread. And pretty good footage of the front hall and the stairwell. And there were plenty of scenes that were filmed inside the house. I highly recommend watching. You can find it on YouTube. Looks like they're doing the Virginia Reel, a popular dance at the time. We're now in the southwest parlor, also known as the drawing room, and it's been nicknamed the refusal room. It's called the refusal room because it's where 2 ladies of the house had turned down proposals from George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. George Washington had proposed to Mary Carter. She turned him down. And Thomas Jefferson had proposed to Rebecca Burwell, also known as Belinda. We're in the same southwest parlor, facing north. Less formal door columns flanking the fireplace. More of those triglyphs going across the frieze. This is the east connection to the breakfast room. This would be the smoking room, and it occupies the western wing of the house. It was also used as an office. Office facing east. Windows here have paneled display jambs with the window seats down below. Now in the northwest parlor, used by the McCraes as their library, it was filled with their collections of hundreds of first editions. This room is the sitting room, and it occupies the west hyphen of the house. Okay, the dining room. This is where dinner was served, obviously. And during the colonial period, dinner was usually served around 2 p.m. Eastern half of the house. Utilitarian kitchen, and it occupies the eastern terminus of the home. Now up on the second floor, this is the study, and it sits in the center of the house right above the main entrance hall. Nice broken arch pediments above the bookshelves. Another nice entrance leading to the stairwell. Again, ionic columns in their full order. And you'll see a pretty nice writing desk here to the left. And this is a view of it facing east. And this would be the master bedroom. A really elaborate Chippendale bed. Lots of finials on top. Okay, a matching day bed right at its foot. Stairwell. And it looks like this is where it terminates, so I guess we're up here on the 3rd floor. And check out the lattice on the rail. Yeah, on the 3rd floor. East bedroom facing west. East bedroom looking east. A couple alcoves with the closets back there, it looks like. Pretty large bathroom. This is a look at it facing southwest. View facing east. Pretty large sink to the right. Like I said, I just wanted to get this place out there. And again, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled. Hopefully it pops up on one of these garden tours. But as always, guys, like and subscribe. See you on the next one.